What happens when a brutal murder in a small-town salon reaches into the halls of justice itself? When a young woman is found with 19 stab wounds and her hair hacked away, the case doesn't just stop at blood and scissors. It spirals into a scandal that touches judges, sheriffs, and the hidden world of organized crime. In The Color of Death, prosecutor Colm Truesdale uncovers how far people will go to hide betrayal, protect power, and twist the truth. This isn't just a whodunit. It's a collision of justice, corruption, and vengeance where every clue matters and every secret comes with a price. Cast you need to know. Colm Truesdale, prosecutor and narrator on the murder case. Travis Hendrick, lead detective on the homicide. Rachel Simone, the victim, a stylist and young business owner. Judge Martin Weber, powerful local judge entangled with Rachel. Tiffany Weber, Martin's wife. Lucas Weber, Martin and Tiffany's son. Sheriff Lloyd, the county sheriff. Dr. Ardell Sharp, medical examiner. Beau and Boucher, crime boss and his ruthless enforcer. JD and Knox, covert vigilantes running a parallel crusade. Bones and Charlotte, a PI and a paralegal whose subplot collides with the main case. Frank Hastings, once a defense attorney, now finds himself bound to a chair inside a remote cabin. JD and Knox, two vigilantes with their own brand of justice, confront him with an old videotape of a trial. They accuse him of betraying his duty in court years earlier. The pair stage a scene meant to look like suicide, but their deeper motive is clear. They're eliminating corrupt players in the justice system one by one. The tension sets the stage for a parallel storyline that runs throughout the book. We are introduced to Colm Truesdale, the county's prosecutor. He is sharp, principled, and allergic to shortcuts or politics. Colm prides himself on evidence and fairness. This chapter frames him as the steady narrative voice through which the murder investigation will unfold. His no-nonsense style contrasts with the corruption and secrecy that will soon be exposed. Detective Travis Hendrick receives a homicide call. There's been a killing at a small salon called Cuts for All on Ender Road. The victim is Rachel Simone, a young stylist and business owner. Hendrick immediately calls Colm Truesdale, recognizing the case will need airtight legal support from the beginning. Their uneasy partnership begins here. At the crime scene, the evidence tells a strange story. Rachel's body lies inside the salon with 19 stab wounds. Her hair has been chopped off and scattered. A pair of scissors is stabbed into her chest, as if staged. Blood pools across the floor, and a partial boot print marks her cheek. Colm also notices a broken gold clasp near the blood. Oddly, the register is untouched, ruling out robbery. Everything feels personal. Dr. Ardell Sharp, the medical examiner, estimates the time of death in early evening. Cause: a severed carotid artery from a single-edged knife, followed by multiple additional stabs. Importantly, he concludes the scissors driven into Rachel's chest were post-mortem, a signature meant to send a message rather than kill. The brutality suggests rage, not random violence. Investigators find Rachel's appointment book. It lists her clients and payments, but some entries are marked differently, almost coded. One stands out, an appointment that suggests a relationship beyond haircut. This discovery points them towards someone powerful and complicates the narrative of who Rachel really was connected to. Colm and Travis visit Shauna Phillips, Rachel's mentor and longtime friend. Shauna recalls Rachel being cheerful and focused the day she died, showing no fear. She confirms Rachel's final appointment that afternoon was with a special client, though she hesitates to name names. This deepens suspicion that Rachel had dealings outside of normal business. Sheriff Lloyd arrives and subtly shields a powerful name from exposure, Judge Martin Weber. His involvement would create political shockwaves. Colm senses the sheriff is trying to manage optics more than solve a murder. Already, the investigation feels compromised by local power struggles. Back at the sheriff's office, Colm and Travis carefully establish the chain of custody. They document scene photos, the hair clippings, the broken clasp, the boot print, and bloody tissues found by the back door. Crucially, they note a storage lot camera nearby that only activates when headlights pass, a potential lead if the killer drove there. Meanwhile, Judge Martin Weber drives nervously, replaying the previous night in his head. Sheriff Lloyd calls to inform him Rachel has been murdered, and his name appears in her appointment book. Martin insists he was home and that his wife Tiffany and son Lucas can confirm his alibi. But he also worries about a missing burner phone, evidence that could link him directly to Rachel. Colm revisits the crime scene to re-examine small details. He notes Rachel's eyes clouding, the literal color of death. He pays close attention to a faint smear on her wrist and ensures the gold clasp is preserved for analysis. His prosecutorial instinct tells him the smallest overlooked detail could later become the key. Dr. Sharp's early lab findings reveal a surprise. The blood on the discarded tissues near the back door is not Rachel's type. Tests also detect traces of shaving cream and styptic pencil. This points to another person being injured and present at the scene, someone who arrived bleeding from a fresh cut. Travis digs deeper into Rachel's social circle. He finds Alana Garcia, a close friend and sometimes free client. Alana admits Rachel had met an older, influential man at the Outer Limits Club. She insists the place has cameras and that someone should check them. The trail moves toward Rachel's private life and hidden relationships. At Outer Limits, surveillance footage confirms Rachel was indeed spending time with an older man connected to power. The interaction is clearly more than casual. For Colm, this is a pivotal moment. The evidence now tilts toward the courthouse elite. If Rachel's murder is tied to someone like Judge Weber, then the case will collide with the very institution Colm serves. Colm discusses the unfolding situation with Bell, his confidant and moral anchor. He knows pursuing a sitting judge could explode politically. Bell advises him to stay cautious, but reminds him why he took this job, to follow truth, not titles. This steadies Colm's resolve. He must build the case piece by piece, airtight and beyond politics. Sheriff Lloyd pressures the team to tread carefully, warning of the consequences of chasing Judge Weber. Colm sees through it. This is less about caution and more about protection. He directs Travis to ignore titles and keep following hard evidence. Phones, cars, cameras, and Rachel's final hours. Lucas Weber, Judge Weber's son, steps into focus. He admits to being infatuated with Rachel and visiting her salon the morning of her murder. He also confesses to cutting himself shaving that day. The detail matches perfectly with the bloody tissues found behind the salon, suddenly implicating Lucas in a disturbing way. Investigators examined the Hill brothers' self-storage surveillance system. It only triggers when headlights pass. They request logs for the evening of Rachel's murder. If a car had been driven behind the salon at the crucial time, the motion-activated camera should confirm it. Forensics reveals a single set of tire tracks in the rear lot. The camera captures a sedan pulling behind the salon at 5:34 p.m. and later shows headlights blinking back on, suggesting someone unlocked the car remotely. This points to deliberate movement and supports the theory that the killer returned to the car after committing the crime. Colm confronts Judge Weber, carefully but firmly. He raises the appointment book entry, the sedan, and the surveillance angle. Martin insists he was home and leans on his wife and son for alibis. Yet the missing burner phone hangs over him like a shadow, evidence that could unravel his story. The pressure mounts. Colm weighs the growing circumstantial evidence against Martin and Lucas. He knows a probable cause hearing may be necessary to force testimonies under oath. It's a gamble, but the case needs clarity. Meanwhile, Beau, a local crime boss, discusses the murder with his ruthless enforcer, Boucher. They toy with the idea of calling it a robbery, but dismiss it. 19 stab wounds don't fit that story. Beau makes it clear. Judge Weber must stay under control, or the consequences will be brutal. The prosecution team re-examines Rachel's body with Dr. Sharp. They notice the knife's hilt left a bruise pattern, and a seized blade could match it. They also confirm the boot print belongs to a men's size 12, narrowing the suspect pool. Phone records show Rachel received a critical message the afternoon of her murder. It's not just the content, but the timing of that message that strengthens the case. The sequence of texts, silences, and pings begins to shape the trial timeline. Dr. Sharp finalizes his autopsy. Time of death between 6 and 8 p.m. Carotid cut, 19 stab wounds, scissors added postmortem. Blood found on the tissues is type A, while Rachel's was type B. Lab DNA results are still pending, but this discrepancy strongly suggests a second person was at the scene. Shauna, Rachel's mentor, adds another layer. She insists Rachel was not reckless. She was focused on her business and her future. Her grief is raw, and her testimony reminds Colm what's at stake. Rachel wasn't just a name in a file. She was building a life that someone decided to end. One night, a gunshot narrowly misses Colm near his home. It's a clear warning to back off. Instead of rattling him, it steals his determination. Whoever is behind this murder has power and reach, but Colm refuses to be intimidated. Back at the DA's office, tensions flare. Dylan Bickler, Colm's superior, pushes for a swift resolution to ease public pressure. Colm resists, arguing that rushing a case without solid evidence could collapse in court. He insists on following the science, even if it takes longer. The clash shows how the pursuit of justice is constantly at war with politics. Lucas Weber meets with investigators again and drops a crucial detail. The morning of Rachel's murder, he used tissues and a styptic pencil in his father's bathroom after cutting himself shaving. This lines up eerily with the tissues found behind the salon. Either someone planted them, or Lucas is far more involved than he admits. The team reconstructs the timeline. From car to salon and back, the route takes 7 minutes. Surveillance shows the sedan sat behind the salon for 16 minutes total. That leaves a mysterious 9-minute gap, time unaccounted for and possibly used to stage evidence or clean up. Colm obtains Martin and Tiffany Weber's phone records. He notices Tiffany's peculiar texting habits, long bursts of rapid-fire messages, sent at the exact time the sedan idled in the storage lot. The timing suggests she was covering tracks rather than chatting naturally. Defense attorney Paul Davis enters the picture, representing the Webers. He begins shaping a narrative. Sheriff Lloyd himself had dismissed robbery as a motive, so Davis frames the killing as a random act of violence. At the same time, he hints at Lucas's crush on Rachel as a possible motive to redirect suspicion. A safe in Judge Weber's office is found with a missing page from sensitive file. Colm suspects this missing document as leverage, possibly used to blackmail or control the judge. Its absence adds another layer of intrigue to Martin's growing problems. Travis confirms the sedan captured in surveillance belongs to Judge Weber. Even more damning, the blinking headlights in the video match how the car's fob works, clear evidence that someone exited and re-entered using the remote unlock feature. Colm confides in Bones, a private investigator. He admits his unease about the intertwined roles of Judge Weber and Sheriff Lloyd. If two powerful institutions are working together, the integrity of the entire justice system could collapse. Travis attempts surveillance on Judge Weber, but gets caught by Sheriff Lloyd. The sheriff's intervention feels less like oversight and more like protection. It's an unmistakable warning. Stop following the judge. Instead, Travis grows more determined to outmaneuver them quietly. Cindy, Colm's boss, confronts him. She asks if the case against the Webers can stand without turning the courthouse into a political war zone. Colm reassures her that science and evidence will lead the way, but she warns him to move slowly and make sure every piece can hold up in court. Meanwhile, JD and Knox continue their secret crusade against corruption. They stalk another target, using their deck of cards calling card as a symbol. Their storyline runs parallel to Colm's official investigation, painting a broader picture of vigilante justice clashing with legal procedure. Bones digs into Charlotte, a paralegal at Harris Law. He questions her about a date marked on her calendar, the day someone close to her died. Charlotte knows more than she's revealing, and her firm's ties seem to overlap suspiciously with JD and Knox's vigilante campaign. Boucher, Bo's enforcer, makes his presence felt. Intimidation, threats, and quiet messages ripple through town. His involvement signals that this murder case isn't just about Rachel anymore. It's about power, control, and keeping certain truths buried. Colm studies crime scene details again, thinking like the killer. He realizes that latex gloves can tear easily against large jewelry. A torn glove could explain how the killer unintentionally left behind trace evidence during the attack. Tiffany Weber resurfaces in Colm's memory. She had once insisted on retrieving her wedding ring, a piece with a large diamond that draws attention. Colm connects the dots. If she wore that ring during the attack, it might have pierced a glove and trapped blood beneath the stone, leaving incriminating evidence right in plain sight. Colm decides Tiffany's ring could be the linchpin. He quietly sends it for testing, instructing the lab to search for trace blood beneath the diamond setting. If they find Rachel's blood there, it would prove Tiffany was at the murder scene wearing that ring. The lab process moves slowly, but Colm stays patient. Sheriff Lloyd, however, continues to lean on him to tread carefully, suggesting that pursuing the judge's wife could embarrass the entire bench. Colm refuses to bow to political pressure. Travis reconstructs the killer's route behind the salon. He times the approach from the storage lot, the entry into the salon, the attack, and the exit. It's tight but plausible. 7 minutes inside to commit the murder. The remaining minutes raise questions about staging or planting evidence. The team prepares exhibits for court: tire casts, surveillance stills, and especially the moment headlights blink on in the lot. That detail proves the sedan was re-entered using a key fob, not by someone waiting inside. Lucas's story about the tissues and styptic pencil is locked into evidence. Investigators confirm the same materials were in his father's bathroom trash that morning. This strengthens the case that someone planted Lucas's used tissues at the crime scene to frame him. Phone data uncovers a chilling layer. Tiffany had accessed Martin's phone weeks before Rachel's death. She discovered his involvement with Rachel, and her jealousy began to boil. This was the seed of her motive. Investigators matched Tiffany's texting cadence with the murder timeline. The long, rapid-fire messages she sent aligned perfectly with the time the sedan sat behind the salon. What looked like casual texting now reads like a deliberate alibi performance. At a local bar, reporters press Colm for answers. He carefully hints that charges may reach into the courthouse itself. Back at the office, he prepares for the probable cause hearing that will test whether his evidence holds up in open court. The hearing begins. Dylan opens, but Colm takes the bold step of granting Lucas immunity. This forces Lucas to testify fully without fear of prosecution. It's a gamble, but one that could expose the real killer. Lucas testifies. He cut himself shaving, used tissues and a styptic pencil, and borrowed his father's car to see Rachel that morning. He admits he asked her out to dinner, but insists she was alive when he left. His testimony paints him as a naive admirer, not a murderer. The state presents the lab results on the tissues found behind the salon. The blood is type A, with traces of shaving cream and styptic pencil, an exact match to Lucas's morning routine. The tissues were clearly moved from the Weber home to the crime scene. Surveillance video from Hill Brothers self-storage is played. The sedan pulls behind the salon at 5:34 p.m. At 5:43 p.m., headlights blink on, a detail that can only occur when someone unlocks the car from outside. By 5:50 p.m., the sedan remains idling. The evidence builds a precise timeline. Colm explains the difference between headlights blinking and a car starting. Remote fobs make lights blink, ignitions do not. This subtle distinction cements the theory that the killer left the salon, then returned to the locked car. Cell tower data reveals Tiffany had visited the salon area before the murder day, circling it like a predator. This proves premeditation. The story of an impulsive crime collapses. Rachel's murder was carefully planned, and Tiffany had already scouted her victim. The defense calls Tiffany Weber to the stand, waiving spousal privilege. Tiffany swears the Weber family was home together the night Rachel was killed. She tries to project confidence, but Colm watches closely, ready to dismantle her testimony. Colm begins cross-examination by dissecting Tiffany's texts. He shows the jury how she sent long, rapid-fire messages during the time the sedan idled behind the salon. Her manicure, her style, and her pace all make clear she typed those texts deliberately, constructing an alibi instead of living one. Attention shifts to the car. Tiffany denies using Martin's sedan. But Colm points out the surveillance footage. Headlights blinking on from a remote fob. Someone had to unlock the car from outside. The evidence narrows the window of who could have been there. Colm reveals the lab results from Tiffany's ring. Blood was found trapped in the tiny crevices beneath the diamond setting. It is Rachel's blood. The implication is devastating. Tiffany wore that ring while stabbing Rachel, and the gem tore through a latex glove. Colm drives home the theory. The killer wore 2 gloves, but the large diamond shredded 1 finger. That rip let Rachel's blood seep inside the glove and cling to the ring's underside. It is proof Tiffany was at the crime scene, wielding the knife. He ties motive to method. Martin had pressured Tiffany to cut 19 inches of her own hair, yet he still strayed with Rachel. Tiffany's rage misfired. She mirrored that humiliation on Rachel. 19 cuts of hair, 19 stab wounds. The symbolism is chilling. Under pressure, Tiffany invokes the Fifth Amendment. The gallery erupts in whispers. The judge's wife refusing to testify in her own defense speaks louder than words. Deputies move to escort her away as the weight of the evidence closes in. Colm orders Tiffany arrested for Rachel Simone's murder. The attempt to frame Lucas and protect Martin collapses. For the first time, Rachel's family sees a path to justice. The fallout ripples quickly. Sheriff Lloyd scrambles to protect his reputation, and Paul Davis begins recalculating defense strategies for Judge Weber. The town itself feels shaken. If titles as lofty as judge and sheriff can bend truth, who else can be trusted? The probable cause record becomes airtight. The video timeline, the tire casts, the tissues, the lab chemistry, the cell data, and the blood on Tiffany's ring. Lucas is free to testify at trial without fear. Tiffany faces the charge of murder with intent. In the background, Boucher kidnaps Judge Weber, dragging him into Beau's underworld. Martin's once great power is stripped away, leaving him at the mercy of criminals he thought he could manage. His family scandal has made him vulnerable prey. Beau delivers a blunt lesson to Martin. Justice isn't the only game in town. Control is. If Martin wants survival, he'll play by their rules. His downfall mirrors the broader theme of corruption being devoured by even greater corruption. Colm reflects on the dual battles. One fought in the courtroom, the other in shadows. While he can pursue Tiffany through law, the network of Beau and Boucher remains outside his reach. The victory in Rachel's case feels partial, even bittersweet. The case against Tiffany Weber finally closes the book on Rachel Simone's murder. Lucas is cleared, Martin is disgraced, Tiffany faces trial, and Sheriff Lloyd's integrity lies in ruins. Colm sees justice done, but also realizes the cost of confronting power this entrenched. Even as Tiffany is brought down, the larger world outside the courtroom remains unsettled. Vigilantes like JD and Knox continue their ruthless crusade, and Beau's grip on the town endures. The Color of Death ends with a haunting reminder. Justice in the courtroom is possible, but the fight against corruption never truly ends. Truth in this world is always hard won and always under siege.